Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be going over my top 5 tips for floating teachers. Floating can be stressful, it can be daunting, and you might feel a little overwhelmed at first. But with these tips, I really believe that you will be prepared and be successful as a floating teacher. Being a floating teacher isn't something that anyone chooses to do. It happens because of limited space. In my case, my school is at capacity and there are too many teachers compared to the amount of rooms that they have. A lot of first-year teachers probably will start out as a floating teacher, so hopefully this video is going to help those of you who are getting your first job or continuing at a new school where you don't actually have your own classroom. Number 1 is to downsize. You don't have your own classroom, which means you're going to be carrying around your classroom with you the entire day. So you're not going to want to be lugging around all these different materials that you necessarily don't need. It's possible to be a floating teacher and carry only one bag. That's exactly what I did. As soon as I found out that I was going to be a floating teacher, I knew straight away that I did not want to use a cart. I didn't want to have to lug around all of my stuff, wheeling around the cart. So I decided to use a bag for my transportation. And I can show you that really quick. It is literally just one of these large tote bags with all the different types of pockets. As you can see here, you get them in a lot of different patterns. I chose a really bright pattern so I wouldn't lose it. And it's just got a lot of different places for you to hold a lot of different materials, which is really awesome for someone who is floating. So in the bag, I really don't have a lot of stuff. I can just show you really quick a few things that I keep every day in my bag. So the first thing I have are just dry erase markers. I always keep a few of these in my bag in case I ever need to write something on the whiteboard. Not all the classrooms that I floated into had expo markers available, maybe a couple, but they'd have no ink in it. I also always kept some tape because, again, every classroom I went into didn't always have all the same materials. Sometimes there wouldn't be any tape. It'd always come in handy. I'd always keep some post-it notes with me as well. They're really handy to have around in case I need to write a quick pass for a student to go in the hallway if I can't find any of the hall passes in the classroom. I keep some binder clips in my bag as well, just to kind of keep things more organized. And of course I just have a few pens and pencils in there for writing utensils, both for me and for my students because they don't always come prepared for class. I also use interactive notebooks in my classes. It does take a while to set them up, but once you get them set up and get kind of going with them, they're amazing. You don't have to keep grading everything every day. All that paperwork can get really daunting. So just having one notebook to check every month is way better than having a lot of stuff to grade all at one time. So if you decide that you want to use a bag, if you like the design of my bag, I can leave a link down below, kind of a similar style. It's really been an amazing bag that I've used throughout this entire year. It's held up, it's not tearing anywhere, it's very durable. It also is a bag that I actually keep at school. I have another bag that I bring to and from school that has more of my personal items in it that I need every day. And this bag is solely for the purpose of moving around the school. So it just always has everything ready to go. I don't have to keep changing out things from day to day, taking things out to travel back home. It just is easier to keep it at school. Number 2 is organization. So organization is a tip I would give to any teacher. All of us teachers need to be organized in some fashion to keep everything in order, to not lose anything, and to make it easier to find things. Figure out what's going to work for you. Not everything that I do probably work for you. It just depends on your personality. So if you want to use a cart, if you don't want to just use a bag, that's perfectly fine. You can organize your cart to have different crates on it where you can put hanging file folders, and you can organize all your materials that way. I know it's easier for some people to have it all accessible in one spot. Well, I kind of just pick and choose what I need that day, and then I'm set. When I first started floating, I was afraid that I was going to end up losing students' work, that I would misplace something somewhere, but thankfully because I got organized in the beginning of the year, that never happened, and I don't know what I would have done if it actually did happen. So what I use is just a really simple filing folder system. I got this from Staples. It's just an expandable filing folder, just like this, that I keep some of my materials in. So I keep all of the worksheets that I'm going to be handing out that day. If I have any reading materials, I will keep them in here, like class sets. I will keep them in here so that I have them for each period. If I had any just activities to put in here so that it would be easy to find later, that's exactly what I did. It worked out perfectly. I might upgrade to a larger one next year because it was just a little small, but it got the job done. I also use just basic filing folders as well. This is where I kept graded student work. I would have, I had 6 of these total in there because I had 3 classes, 2 for each class. One of them was for work that I needed to grade, and then the other one was work that was to be handed back. So this really just got all of my papers organized. I never really had a problem finding anything, and it was just easy to take these out and put them in my work bag if I needed to bring them home to grade, and it was just a simple, easy way to organize. Again, that's not going to work for everybody. You can use a larger crate to organize all of your files. You can use filing systems that are larger than that. As I said, that was a little bit small for me, so if you want to get a larger one that has a closed top, that might work for you as well. Number 3 would be to prepare in advance. With being prepared, what I mean is make sure that you have all of your materials in your classroom the day before, preferably. You can get in early, but I wouldn't count on it because you never know what's going to happen in the morning. You might get sick, you might have just troubles with your car, something like that, that will prevent you from getting in to set up your classroom. You will want to go into each of the classrooms that you are floating into if you have some kind of project that you need extra materials for. So if you are doing a group project and you need extra poster board, for example, I would make sure that I have all of the materials needed in place in a separate spot in each classroom so that you don't have to keep lugging that around all day. You will probably forget something. Trust me, it's happened to me multiple times, about 5 times to be exact. And it can get really stressful. There was one time where I forgot the tests that I needed to give that day. So thankfully I had a minute or 2 left before the bell rang. I got out of the classroom, I ran upstairs, I grabbed the test, and it was all perfect. But yeah, that's gonna happen more than likely. And I have 2 pieces of advice for this. Again, prepare the day in advance. If it does end up happening to you, then what you can do is send a student up to your office or wherever it's at in the school, someone that you trust to get the job done in an orderly, timely fashion. Or maybe you have a teacher friend who has their planning period next door who can run and go get that for you really quick. But again, it's not the end of the world if you forget something. Just keep on teaching. A bonus tip to this is to figure out how the technology works in each of your classrooms. I did not do this when I first started teaching, and the first 2 weeks of school were always a challenge. I was always trying to figure out how to get the technology to work. As simple as, how do I turn on the projector? Every one of the projectors that I had in the classrooms this year were all different in some way, and were all finicky in their own ways as well. There was one classroom where I had a stereo system put in place where I just really couldn't figure out how to work it because there were just so many buttons on it. So I'd spend about 2 minutes trying to figure out how to play the video at the beginning of class, and I'd have to get the students to help me. So it's really important to figure out how to use the technology in your classrooms. Find out where the remotes are, because that's something I also had to struggle with. But if you had asked the teacher before where all the materials are, how to work everything, you would not have to deal with that. It would have been more simple to figure out how the technology works before the school started than to wait. Because if you're just winging it, then you will probably waste a lot of time. Number 3 is relationships. So this is really going to make or break your experience as a floating teacher. If you don't have a good relationship with the teachers that you are sharing a classroom with, then you probably won't have a good experience floating. Make sure that you visit the classrooms before you start teaching. Get to know the teachers before you enter their classrooms. Ask them what their name is if you have never met them before. Ask them what the boundaries are in the classroom. Is there anywhere that is somewhere students can't go? Is there anything that they don't want students to touch? Make sure that you know what your students can and can't do in the classroom. You want to make sure that you are adhering to the teacher's rules as well. Also ask the teachers that you are sharing a room with if there is anything that you can share together. For example, colored pencils, scissors, glue sticks. Is there a place where you can both store all of your materials and just share them throughout the year? If you guys don't want to share materials, then just make sure that you each have your own spot to store things. Also try and float into rooms that are in your department. So for example, I teach social studies. I wouldn't want to float into a math classroom, for example. So thankfully, all the classrooms that I floated into were history classes, so there were textbooks that I could use and utilize, as well as other resources such as posters, maps, and all that cool stuff. You also want to make sure that you establish good relationships with the support staff. In the beginning of the year when I started floating, I did not have keys to all of the classrooms. I had to wait a month before my key came in for my first period classroom, and every morning when I got there, the door was always locked, and I would be frantically running around trying to figure out if there was somebody with the key that could open my door. So thankfully, the custodian on the hallway that I was in figured out that I was having trouble getting my door open every morning, and she decided to open the door every day for me until I got my key, which was such a great help. So again, making that relationship with the people in your building will make everything so much easier. A side note to this, if you don't have keys to all the classrooms that you're floating into, just go and ask the main office if you can get a copy of a key. I know this may not be an option for all schools, but I think that having a key to every one of your classrooms is definitely going to make things go smoother. If you have a fire drill in the middle of the day, you want to make sure that you can lock your classroom. Number 4 is space. You're definitely going to want to place somewhere in the building that you can call your own, where you can put all of your personal items, where you can keep materials that you really don't use every day, and where you can kind of sit and plan and relax during your planning period. If you're in an interview and you know that you're going to be a floating teacher, ask the people on the panel if you'll have a space somewhere in the school designated just for you. You might be lucky enough to get a space that is designated for a floating teacher. For example, I shared an office with another teacher this past year, and it was a really awesome opportunity to get to know that teacher, to make a friend, and also to have a place where you can call your own. Also ask the teachers that you are sharing a classroom with if there's a space available for you to keep any of your materials that you use every day inside of the classroom. So for example, if you want to put a crate in the classroom where you can have students' graded work already in there and ready for them to pick up, you can do that. If you want to keep a crate full of all of your resources in there, then you don't have to lug them around wherever you go. That can also be an option as well. But ask if there is maybe a cabinet, a desk, or maybe a small table where you can have all of your materials at, so that you can access them every day. It would make things much easier if you have a space where you can kind of keep all of your stuff in one spot and always know where it is. And one last thing is to make sure that you have a space on the whiteboard somewhere. Ask the teachers that you're sharing a room with if there is a spot where you can section it off and make it yours, so that you can have all of your objectives, your daily schedule, any important dates listed up on the board for students to see. It makes your life easier, it makes life for students easier to be able to see that every day, and it just makes you more organized as well. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope it was helpful for any of you who are going to be floating teachers. If you have any other tips that I didn't mention in this video about being a floating teacher, please leave them down in the comments below. And remember, please subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss any future videos. And I can't wait to see you until the next one.